In this video, I'm going to walk you through the first Excel assignment, which is on data visualization, basically how to graph various types of data using Excel. Before we get started with this, I'd encourage you to download the desktop version of Excel. You have access to a free copy of the desktop version or the web version, also through your LSUS account. The desktop version is preferred. There are some things in Excel that exist in the desktop version that do not exist in the web version. Also, on exams, you will not have access to the web version. You do have access to your desktop version. So, with this assignment, there's this spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet has 5 different tabs: noodle spending, complaints, city MPG, housing starts, and privacy. And on each one of these, we're going to use Excel's graphing features to graph the data in the most appropriate way. This first one, noodle spending, shows expenditures by person at Noodles & Company restaurants. And this is just basically not in any particular order. You see here it's just a bunch of numbers. Each one of these represents a different person's spending. And what we want to do is we want to create what is known as a histogram from this data. And to do this in Excel, we're going to basically click anywhere on any of this data in here and then go up to Insert. And you may I should note that there's 2 different menus in Excel. There's sort of the menu that goes with the spreadsheet, and that's what this is here. And then there's an upper menu, which I call the Excel menu or the upper menu, which often has the same sort of menu items, at least the headings, but when you click on them, you find that they're actually sort of different. So on this one, we're down on the spreadsheet menu. And what we want to do for all of these, we're going to click on Insert. And when we go to Insert, we will see over here we have various graph types. We have recommended charts, and then you can also sort of just go and select what type of chart you want over here. And for the first 4 of these, we're just going to go with recommended charts. Now, I'm doing this in Excel for Mac. It looks very similar if you're using Excel on a Windows machine. The recommended charts will look slightly different, at least in terms of the options or how they're conveyed to you. But for most purposes, it's going to look very similar to this, and it's the same steps. So we're going to click on the recommended charts here, and I tell you on this one that we want to do a histogram. Now, if we scroll down here on the Excel for Mac version, it'll actually sort of say, what each one of these is. And you see I just clicked on line, and it doesn't really make any sense. So I'm going to undo that. If you did that in Excel for Windows, it would have given you a little blurb as to when you might want to be using that particular graph. Okay. But on Windows, it won't necessarily tell you this is a line graph. You may have to actually click on the chart or the example they show, and then on the right-hand side to the right, it'll pop up and say this is a line graph, and you'd use it for this. So slight difference there between the 2 systems. So we're going to scroll down here. We want histogram, and if we just click on that, this pops up, and it's basically it's taken the data and has put it into different bins. Down here on the x-axis, it shows the lower bound and the upper bound, or the boundary of each bin. We don't necessarily want the chart, so we can just click on that, or the chart title, click on that, and just hit delete. If you wanted to move this to a different sheet, so right now it exists on the noodle spending sheet, we can click. Here I've clicked so it's outlining the whole border here as opposed to outlining the chart area, and then do a right click, and you can select Move Chart, And if we do that, you can say, send it over to a new sheet, and it'll give you a heading like chart 1 or chart 2. I've been messing around, so I already did a chart 1, so now it's saying chart 2. And if we do that, it'll move it over there to another sheet. And then you can go in here and double click on chart 2 down below and rename it, say noodles. Let's just say it's a histogram. Okay, so you have that. So that's how you do the first one. Second one, complaints. This one we're going to use what is known as a Pareto chart. And what I want to point out here first is we have different types of customer complaints in terms of what the primary complaint is. We have the frequency, we have the percent that's attached to each one of those. It's not quite in ascending order. We have like 45, then 13, then 21, 90, down to 85. With the Pareto chart, it's going to put this data in order, starting with the most frequent. Okay, so let's just click in here, click on some of this data, go to Insert, Recommended Chart, and scroll down. And here it is. That's the last one here. Click on that, and there's our Pareto chart. So you see here, wait too long was the most common complaint, or the one with the highest frequency, and then service person not helpful, difficult to reach a real person, etc., etc. So it gives that in the columns or the bars. And then it gives you a cumulative frequency, and this is plotted over on the right-hand side. So if we look here, wait too long and read over, it says 350, and for that one, so 350 read off the left y-axis, and we go down here, and this looks like it's somewhere around like 45% on this graph. And if we go and actually take a look at this. Let's see, move it out of the way. Wait too long. Yeah, 44.2% is what it shows there. Okay. And again, on this one, we don't necessarily want the title, chart title, and just click on that and hit delete. Okay. And again, if you wanted to move this to another sheet, you could. I'm just going to leave it where it is. So that's a Pareto chart. Pareto is capitalized. It's actually named after a statistician by the name of Vilfredo Pareto. I believe he was Italian. The third tab is City MPG. And for this one, we want to do a scatter plot, also known as an XY plot, where we want to plot on the x-axis, we want to plot the weight of a vehicle. And then on the y-axis, we want its city MPG. Okay, so again, just sort of click on any of the data here, and it's going to figure out where the data actually is, including the data labels here. Go to Insert, Recommended Chart, and it's this first one. Just say Scatter, and it goes by scatter plot, XY plot, and just do that, and you see here it'll label the header or the title of the chart as City MPG. If you wanted to get fancy, you can go in there and actually insert. You can go in there and insert chart elements and label your x-axis and y-axis. We don't really need to do that right now. Scatter plots are real useful for looking at the correlation between two variables. Towards the end of the class, when we get into regression analysis in module, I think it's module 7, we'll be using scatter plots to sort of take a look at the data. Okay, the fourth tab that we have here is housing starts. This is in thousands. It runs from 1959 through 2023. I don't think the 2024 data is available yet. It might be. So this one we want to do a line graph. We want to see how this has changed over time. Okay, and we go into recommended charts. I'm going to point out the first two here. This first one, that's the line graph. That's the one that we want. The second one looks identical. It is a scatter plot. It's basically plotting starts against the year. So it's treating year as an X variable. And technically we want this top one up here, the line graph, because we have this already in order. So it'd be better to use that than the scatter plot. But the scatter plot would also work. In fact, you could format the scatter plot to get rid of these individual points here to make it look exactly the same. So we'll just click on that line graph, and that's what the data looks like. You see here we're sort of in a downtrend at the very end here, the last several years in terms of housing starts. Okay, and finally, the last one, we want to do a pie chart. And if we go up here, so insert, recommended chart, you will not find a pie chart up here. Okay, and that's true also over in Excel for Windows. So instead, if we look here, we see there's a pie chart right there. Okay, so we're just going to click on this, and it gives you some options. You can do a 2D of various types. You can do a 3D pie chart. Basically just sort of folds it over and gives you a oblique angle on it. I typically go for the more simpler ones. And so if we click on that, we end up with the pie chart, and then there's this legend down here saying what the different colors are. And you can move this legend around. You can have it show up here in the upper right on the top. There's also a way to actually have it tied in sort of directly to each of these pie wedges. So that's basically the assignment. You just need to go through and do those 5 graphs. You can, if you wanted to, you can move them over to their own separate tab for each one of those, or you can leave it on the tab where the data is. That's also fine. If you end up with some sort of error where you're not quite, getting the same thing as what you see here, you can always send me an email. Anyway, hope this helps.